All right, good morning everyone. A few tech issues this morning, but Happy New Year. Welcome to 2020, a new decade, Fee.
I know, it's very exciting. Delighted to be here. As Kate said, a few tech issues, not quite sure what was going on there, but we finally got ourselves both on camera, so good start.
Absolutely. So I think it's with everything that's going on with the fires here in Australia, I think it's a challenging time. I know you obviously were impacted down in Eden over the summer break. And so obviously, and I said this in our newsletter that went out yesterday, if there's anyone in our community who needs any support, needs anything, please reach out to us. Whatever we can do to support anyone who's affected from the fires, we'd obviously love to help. And I think, for everyone else, it was it's been a difficult start to the year. I think many people are back at work this week. And yeah, I think normally, Christmas is a time of joy and relaxing, and it was obviously difficult. So I think it's really, and I think the other big thing is really a big perspective piece. I mean, New Year's is always a big perspective piece. What is it that I want for the year ahead? The whole 2020 thing means what is it that I want for the decade ahead? But obviously, such magnitude chaos and disasters like fires really kind of put lots of other things that we might be concerned into perspective.
Yeah, I've really been listening to and noticing what's going on for people, and it's a really interesting point, because as we're heading into the end of last year and we're getting quite excited about, new year, what does that mean, new decade? And then we went into this really intense fire season, and for so many people that disrupted plans. It caused chaos. It caused change and uncertainty that we really weren't anticipating at that scale. I mean, obviously I wouldn't have even headed south had I thought we were going to end up in that much of a fire zone, and that I've got friends and relatives in Canberra who actually their buildings are closed down. They can't actually go to work, so they got excited. They're coming back to work, doing their research, doing their jobs, and now they've had to end up in Melbourne because their buildings can't even be open because of the amount of smoke. So I think, as you're saying, this kind of disruption, this change in what we were expecting, two things. One is that mental health thing of just tune in, make sure you're looking after yourself, you're doing good self-care. If you do need support, reach out to us or other people in your network that can help you. And at the same time, how do I hold myself? How am I okay despite all of this chaos that's going around me? How can I have, good connection to myself, not just my core confidence, but that whole piece of regulation, rather than being sparked into reaction or sort of a reaction that's beyond what's kind of useful and necessary in the circumstances.
And of course, these sorts of situations, just amazing. I was just reflecting when I was getting ready this morning, just amazing. Do you remember a time when we raised this amount of money for any cause? And Justice Celeste Barber one, I don't even know what it's up to now. I think it's definitely well over 40 million. But and lots of different, the wires donations up to 10 million, I think I saw last night. So we've never raised this level of money, and so I think just an amazing, we're hearing so many amazing stories of human spirit, generosity across our country, across our world, actually, as well. So I think one of the things I read a post which I really loved that talked about, it's not just now, it's later. And so particularly our rural, and we're both in New South Wales, our rural countries, making it a priority to get out there, spend money, fill up fuel there, stay in the hotels, create little mini weekend breaks so that their little local economies can really start to rebuild as we move forward over the coming months and things like that. But I think we've still got a little way to go before we're at that point.
Yes, yeah. And I think this is always the silver lining of, terrible situations and disasters and that sort of thing. We really do see people stepping up. We see courage, we see resilience, we see, amazing stories of people doing more than they thought possible. And we've certainly seen that not just with our volunteer fire force, but all sorts of people across the community. And as you say, people willingly donating not just money, but time and other resources. There's a whole Authors for Fireys thing going on at the moment where all sorts of writers are donating not just their books, but like coaching sessions or dinners, or champagne or book club events. There's some really cool community spirit things that are arising out of what is obviously a very intense and difficult period. So I think that's something that gives us hope and allows us to think, allows us to also be conscious of that human spirit of when our backs are against the wall, humans are pretty amazing and very resourceful in what they can do.
Two beautiful perspective pieces. One is the magnitude of, we get stressed about lots of things in our lives. How against this backdrop, how does that compare? And it's always a really good piece. And look at the amazing generosity. Sometimes we get really down on people in our life or people, colleagues, all that sort of stuff, and to look at the amazing generosity of people who are risking their lives to save neighbours' homes and all those sorts of things. So let's turn, I guess, briefly. Our theme for this month is setting yourself up well for 2020. Chapter 3 of Core Confidence is all about set goals and take action. It's an incredibly important piece that we talk about, this concept of life by design rather than default. And we learned a lot last year. When I was reviewing the newsletter to send out, I was just reflecting on how much we learned. It was probably, there seems to be a theme every year of our subject where, for whatever reason, our clients tend to teach us a lot. We learned a lot last year around goal setting, around, this belief that I might have clarity, but actually I don't. This resistance to setting goals, which is actually quite common. And then a whole lot around accountability. But today we wanted to talk a little bit, throughout the month, we're going to be talking about, how do you really set yourself up well in terms of goal setting, but then actually the action planning and the follow through. Because, I've got all my, and Fee and I have been working on bits, we work on all our goals and things and reflections for the year. But it's not just that part, it's the actions you take every day, every week, every month throughout the year that will lead you towards success. So let's just talk a little bit around, I guess, making the choices. I think that's one of the big, pieces we got last year is, it's hard to set goals because it's not actually about what I'm saying yes to, it's what I have to say no to.
Yes, yeah, I think this was so powerful for me and so many of the clients we're working with, and it just kept coming up again and again that I don't know that it is we're super conscious of at the time, but there is some FOMO going on. There's this sense that but if I really articulate and say very clearly, I'm going after these, and we're quite clear that don't try and do too much at once. Even if it's just for 90 days, go for those 1, 2, or max 3 goals, and set yourself up, and then work out what you need to do to get there. But inevitably, I'm not going to be able to do everything that I could, or even that I'd like to do. And that piece feels uncomfortable, or for some of us, it feels more uncomfortable than others. So this, and I'll put my hand up as one of the ones who finds it hard to say no to things because I get very excited and enthusiastic, and I want to be able to do everything, and I want to be able to contribute and share and grow different things. But actually, saying yes to too many things means my energy is just too scattered, and I can't really do justice to and really achieve the things that are most important. So this sense of being able to say no to some things, and it's not necessarily no forever. It's a no, this is not what I'm prioritizing. This is not what I'm focusing on now. And I think that sometimes helps a little bit to not have to throw everything away completely, but just to know that I'm actually not spending energy and time on that in this X amount of time.
I think that's the first key piece around get clear about what you're saying yes to, and then get clear about what you're saying no to. And actually, most of the time, I start with what are you saying no to? And sometimes that ends up with people at what actually is a priority. But I think we cannot underestimate this piece of clarity, because in the absence of getting clear and saying no, we say yes to everything, we run around, we're scattered, our resilience is low, our physical health, mental health starts to drop, our ability to execute, everything starts to unravel. So I think it's really important, get really clear about what you're saying yes to. And I think the second thing I want to talk about today is when we're setting goals, what's the evidence of success? And people really struggle with this. And this is really important. I was doing a coaching session on Monday and I kept asking questions. Okay, well, if you had built more influence with that stakeholder, what would be different? And, kept coming back to, evidence around family. I'm like, no, it's what would that stakeholder be doing differently, saying differently, and or what would stakeholders around them be doing differently, noticing, all those sorts of things that mean you would have created the influence with this particular stakeholder that you're seeking to create. And I think people often say that is hard and it's difficult to articulate, which is true in some circumstances, but just because something's hard doesn't mean you don't have a go. And something is better than nothing. And I did this with, I was leading a kind of a very clear goal setting piece for the accelerators on Monday. And it was, this piece around, I really want my, my physical strength, my core strength, my fitness to be strong. And I was kind of drafting the pieces of what's the evidence of success. And it was so helpful to me because it was like, what, I want to be able to get out of bed. I want to be able to kind of move without being concerned about sore backs or any of those sorts of things. Like I want to be really nimble and I want to feel really strong, like strong in my mind, strong in my head. And I know what that feeling feels like. But really just having those 3 to 5 bullet points of what is the evidence. If I am at whatever, if I've achieved my goal, what does evidence of success look like? And have a go at this. I think it's really important because once we've done that, then we can have some really good action planning that follows through from that.
Yeah, I love that specificity of it, can't even say that word, but getting so clear, getting specific about what it is it looks like and challenging yourself when you can't get specific. What is that telling you? Because there's a little clue in there for you, what is it? Possibly resistance or, lack of understanding or knowledge. What is it that you need? So you can go, okay, this is what that would look like. And as you say, once you've got that reference point, then there's no wiggle room really, because, you know what the outcome is, where you need to get to. And I really love that thing you did with Chandra last year, actually, where you actually made you made a really clear connection that when I'm tempted to not do what I know is in my best interest, I go back to why I'm doing it. And so I'm really locked into those evidence pieces and what will be different in my life. And that makes it easier for me to make the choice that's best in this moment.
Yeah, so that was the webinar we did on with YPWA. And if you want, I can pop a link below for that. And that was very much around the belief piece. So she was referencing gluten-free eating. And so as someone who values health, I choose to eat gluten-free. And really holding that almost as a mantra when it comes to making those choices. And that's really putting the values front and center to hook you into the why. 2 reasons why people don't achieve their goals. They often overestimate what they can achieve in a short period of time, underestimate what they can achieve in a long period of time, and they're not clear of their why. They actually don't want the goal enough. When you want something, and I mean truly want something, and are aligned in terms of the why, everything gets out of the way. You make choices, you make good choices all the time. You choose your goal, you say yes to your goal all the time, or at least 95% of the time that leads you towards success. So I think 3 really important pieces. Get clear around what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to. What are the evidences of success? And get really clear around why achieving that goal is important to you. Write it down, have it handy. Proximity is absolutely power when it comes to this stuff. No point writing goals and then throwing them in the drawer, which often happens in most workplaces. We want these goals, on pieces of paper in windows, in showers, on screensavers is another great idea. I have a little card I carry around every 6 weeks, which has got my core actions and my core focus goals for that sort of 6-week period as well. So proximity is absolutely power. Sophie, we might leave it there. Have a great day. Next week, we'll be back online, really starting to talk to where I think people tend to go wrong because life gets in the way of these things. Of saying, okay, great, we've got your goals. Now, how do we go about actually taking it down to step by step so that we actually staircase you to success?
Great. I'm looking forward to that one.
Thanks, Fee. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Kate.